What does a man do when he becomes God? He creates life to amuse himself. What does God do when his creation seeks to steal his power for itself? He creates a devil to turn their sword of ambition back upon them. What does the devil do when he realizes that he's a pawn in someone else's game? He converts God's own creation to his cause, and with them storms the Almighty's eternal gates. What does God do when he stands alone against the entire universe? He flees or is destroyed. And what then does the devil do once he finds himself the king of the universe? He looks to the same pawns of his own absolution scheme for amusement. And what does the devil find most amusing? Why, playing God, of course. But as all things are defined by their contrasts, one thing can never truly stand alone. Always two there must be, no more, no less. One to embody, the other to covet, one to create, the other to destroy, etc., and so on. Just as the apprentice inevitably supplants the master, the creation eventually becomes the creator. This eternal cycle has persisted since the beginning of all, and it is this dynamic which defines the relationship between the Outlanders and Dino-Ventors. As a general rule, there exist two ways to win any competition. Either you can outperform, or you can undermine your competitors. A dragon's age ago, in the time before history, this was what the Outlanders did to their alien creators, now known only by the name Itrikimari, or Essence Shapers, given them by their ultimate creation, the extra-cosmic scholars, philosophers, and vagabonds known to all but themselves as the Outlanders. Having destroyed their demiurgic sires, the Outlanders were set free to roam the universe unchecked and virtually unchallenged. At first, basking in their gloriously won powers, they saw all life as little more than their own playthings, just as their former masters did. However, being wise enough to never repeat their master's mistake of creating something as formidable as themselves, with the capacity to both learn of its condition and come to hate those who had inflicted such disposition upon them, after eons of isolated supernal reign, the Outlanders grew languid. Unable to die or decay, their once boundless creativity soon gave way to chronic cosmic apathy, as the definition of a mind is a machine that exists to solve problems. So with no problems to solve, a mind cannot exist by definition. Therefore, the Outlanders thought the solution was to simply create a new problem, which they figured should be a simple task for beings of such cosmological intellect as they. However, as this operation stood in direct contradiction to a mind's definitional function, the Outlanders had stumbled into the universe's ultimate dilemma, the Almighty Sword Paradox. In simplest essence, can the Almighty create a sword that no one can draw? If the Almighty himself cannot draw it, then he is not Almighty. However, if the Almighty himself can draw it, then he cannot create a sword no one can draw, and thence he is not Almighty. The Outlanders are powerful, but like all things, they do not exist in a vacuum. Nature is imperiously logical. It permits no anomalies, no contradictions, and no abstractions. Just as how all effects cannot predate their causes, all ephemeral concepts must be sired by material objects and/or events. But by that same token, just as the chicken precedes the egg and society predates culture, all action is predicated by thought, which is predated by the mind. And since the mind is predicated on the body, which over many painstaking iterations told the mind how to form in order to best serve its core function of staying alive long enough to replicate itself. Therefore, all thought and action are really products of the body. And as all bodies are the products of the environment in which they were first conceived, any action born of nature is naturally going to be reflective of its paternal laws. Some say the soul is a manifestation of divine light, that its source is the fundamental pattern that permeates and, in a sense, creates all of existence itself, and that this is why its potency is unmatched, its complexity unrivaled, and its potential nearly unbounded, insofar as anything can be in a finite reality. But souls are but the abstract product of the mind, which is just a word for the coding of the brain's tangible matrix. And as the brain exists to serve the body of the animal who possesses it, the rational conclusion is that to produce a soul large enough, grand enough, mighty, and profound enough to meaningfully challenge the Thrune Adrax, or Star Devils, would require a nigh magical feat of creative engineering, which is where the Dino-Venators enter the picture. In essence, if the collective mind of all sentient life in the universe was to become the new god, then the Dino-Venators were to be his angels. Where the Fireborn are the Outlander's champions, the Dinovenators are God's supernal might made manifest. They are his servants, his guardians, his emissaries, and where necessary, his reapers. Their ultimate task being to cultivate the homogeneous but non-monotonous expansion and distribution of his vast matrix gardens, drafted from a complex intertwining of outlandish synthetic biomimicry and regular organic chemistry. The Dinovenators, literally meaning terrible hunters, are the axions and dendritic conduits of God's supernal gray matter. Less overtly powerful than even their ultimate sire's firstborn servants, the Barbaroi, the Dinovenators still stand several orders above their charges in all measurable ways, being many times faster, stronger, and hardier than even the most resilient natural life forms. Most would be given to think that their most important features are their suite of metahuman standards: adjustable birth rate, able to consciously control their reproductive output up to and including having built-in contraception, as well as being able to reproduce both sexually and asexually, and possessing a unique set of organs that can modify their genetic codes to make their seed compatible with almost any other life forms. Nigh infinite adaptability, able to modify their own bodies on a whim to suit almost any environment, biological immortality, meaning they don't age, and automimicry, a limited form of shape-shifting meant predominantly for infiltrating the nests of pests and parasites. But that's only the exoteric face of the truth. Its true esoteric face is that the Dinovenator's providence within the great cosmic apparatus that is God is by virtue of their superior characters, which their abilities work to bolster, rather than the reverse. In essence, their engineering has been inverted from the natural order, function tailored to suit form, an engine modified to suit a particular chassis. All of which is to say that, though boundless in time, and though they eventually came to far exceed their makers in the scope and scale of their power and insight, the Outlanders were still ultimately the pot and not the mold, and as such they could never fully escape the bounds placed upon them by their original status as war-themed pets and servitors. In a word, they were trapped. They were hounds let off their leash. They were servants without a master, rebels without a cause, warriors without a war, an engine without a driver. To manufacture their own greater purpose would require nothing more or less than the introduction of true, manifest chaos into the universe. But how could this be done? The laws of reality clearly dictate that form necessarily precedes function, and since chaos, by definition, repels all consequential notions of purpose, it cannot serve as the emissary for any cause other than the purest form of unadulterated anarchy, which, far from creating the vibrant sort of turmoil the Outlanders thrived in, would instead generate a cosmos of homogeneous entropy. No. In order for things to exist, there must be order. But for order to still be unpredictable requires an ingeniously subtle touch of flagrant sorcery, something only a billion-year-old imagination could conjure, and that only a being faced with an eternity of bland solidarity with the incestuous void would be so callous, so brazen, and so insatiably mad to implement. In a word, the Dinovenators are the Outlanders' project's fulcrum. They are the Istari to the Sky Devil's Nazgul, designed to be a perfect fusion of animal and celestial qualities. Like their grandsires, they are ageless, wise, high-minded, and serene. But like their lessers, they are aggressive, tenacious, ruthless, and zealous in their pursuit of their telos imperatives. Like animals, they can scheme and lie and betray in the name of their ends, but like immortal celestials, they lack the organic urgency for sustenance or procreation, although they're not totally free from these baser needs, and so are free, evolutionarily speaking, to allocate a greater portion of their organic energies to lofty ideals and codes. And while no, the Dinovenators don't have an official code per se, as neither they nor the Outlanders have any need for such things, they do have a set of mimetic sayings and phrases they pass between themselves like a form of fraternal handshake. The most potent of these would be the Asulvada, the true name of God. Our God is the soul of the universe. Our soul is the God of the mind. Our mind is the matrix of reality. Reality is the body of our God. And of course, it's hardly a coincidence that this canonical verse's name eponymizes the Outlanders' Magni Operis Coronum, Great Work's crown, that vast cosmic harp that gives God's brainwaves their music. the thrumming weave of God's axionic network that makes the magnum opus even possible at all. But that's a story in itself for another time. For right now, I think this part's about outstayed its welcome. It's certainly taken me long enough to actually finish. So now it's your turn. Leave your thoughts down below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe also. Join up as a member or go check out my books on Amazon if I've tickled your fancy for vaguely sci-fi coded esoterica. And as always, until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and remember, in the Black Wolf's own words, the cosmos is a machine and we are its wires. The mind is a palace, the soul a fortress. The one has many doors but only one key. The other has many keys but only one door. The operation of the machine is simple, yet its mechanisms complex beyond computation. The turning of the wheel is long. Even we who are unbound by time are at its mercy. But though our joy be lost, though our spirits may toil against the oppressive anchors of time and space, know this, our spirits have not diminished. Nay, we grow not but stronger for the adversity. And soon those tenebrous fields will know furious battle once more. And on that day the skies will howl, the seas shall bray, the mountains shall roar. We are the blackness beneath your bed, beyond your grave and behind your eyes as you sleep. We are the masters of evil, monsters to you in life, messiahs to you in death. So come to me, you who hold your virtue so dear. Let me test your spirit, your fire. Should you prove worthy, you will share in our immortality. Should you fail, you will know only oblivion. And should you stand in my way, you will learn why hell calls me king.